Everything started from here. That's crazy. I'm already on 26. It's nuts. Okay. Jin's entry on the 2nd of March, year 19. So what year did we just bounce from? We just came out of 17 to 19. So chronologically speaking, we've skipped ahead 2 years. Alright. Jin's entry. I stepped into the principal's office following Dad. It smelled like mildew. It's been 10 days since I came back from the US, and I just found out the day before that I'd be 1 grade lower because of the different school systems. Ooh, that sucks. Please take good care of my son. I shuddered at Dad's hand on my shoulder. School is a dangerous place. It needs to be tightly controlled. The principal looked me in the eye. Wearing a black suit, his wrinkly cheeks and the corners of his mouth quivered slightly every time he opened it. The inside of his blackened lips were even darker. Don't you agree, Sakjin? As I squirmed at his abrupt question, Dad tightened his grip on my shoulder and I felt a twinge on the back of my neck. I'm sure you'll behave yourself. Principal obstinately tried to make eye contact while Dad tightened down on me further. I clenched my fists as his grip almost fractured my shoulder blade. You know you have to keep me informed, right? You'll be a good student, right? Principal stared me down without a hint of a smile. Yeah. As soon as I squeezed the answer out, the pain in my shoulder disappeared. Dad and the principal roared with laughter. I couldn't even raise my head. I kept looking down at Dad's brown shoes and the principal's black shoes. The toe caps of their shoes shined brightly, though it was a mystery to me where the light was coming from. So he's kind of in this state of just phasing them out, that he's not even paying really much attention to what they're saying, but instead noticing the things around him to take his mind off of the situation. It's kind of crazy. What we see when we pay attention to other things is mind-boggling. Alright. Jimin, entry 12th March, year 19. It had been several days since the new semester began, but my classmates were still strangers to me. It was not hard to guess that they were gossiping about me. I tried to act indifferent, but to no avail. We heard you live in an apartment across the river. Why did you come to this school? I pretended I didn't hear the question. I had nothing to say. I just continued walking past with my head bent. Hey, didn't you hear me? I quickened my pace. I had transferred from one school to another, and I had been in and out of the hospital. There were no more schools left near my neighborhood to transfer to. I headed for the classroom, turned storage room, that I cleaned as a penalty for being late to school. As I opened the door, I was startled to hear voices inside. Who could be here at this hour? I was about to silently close the door and turn around when someone called my name. Hey, you're Park Jimin, right? They were the senior students who cleaned the room with me for being tardy. I wasn't sure whether I should answer them or just leave. Somebody tapped me on my shoulder. Aren't you going in? Without realizing it, I walked into the classroom. It's good to see you again. Don't you remember me? I'm Taehyung. We're in the same grade. Before I knew it, I was sitting down on a chair. The storage room door continued to open and close, and the 7 students who did the cleaning together were all there. Nobody asked questions. We just listened to music, read books, danced, and fooled around. I felt as if we'd been hanging out together forever. So this is where I guess they all kind of met up, or at least this is where Jimin met the group. So it's a good point of reference. It's not bad. Yoongi on the 12th of June, year 19. I cut school without thinking, but I had nowhere to go. It was hot and I had no money and nothing to do. It was Namjoon who first proposed we go to the sea. The others seemed excited about it, but I didn't care either way. Do you have any money? Hearing my question, Namjoon told the others to dig into their pockets. A few coins and even fewer bills. We can't go. Why don't we walk? That must have been Taehyung. Namjoon's expression seemed to tell him to use his head and think before speaking. Everyone but me was jabbering, laughing for no reason, and romping around. I fell back as I wasn't in the mood. The sun was broiling, it was midday, and there was no shade under the trees. The asphalt road had no sidewalks, and every time a car passed, it would kick up a thick cloud of dust. Let's go there, it was Taehyung. Or was it Hosak? I wasn't paying attention anyway, but it must have been one of those two. I don't see any point in going there. Should I tell them to go on without me? I turned my head and almost bumped into someone. It was Jimin. Why is his M capitalized? It was Jimin. He stood there as still as a statue. His face was trembling down to the smallest muscle as if he had seen something terrifying. Are you okay? He seemed unaware of the question. His gaze was fixed on a signpost that read 2.1 kilometers to Grassflower Arboretum. Sweat was dripping off his face, which had turned ashen as if he was going to pass out. Ooh. Park Jimin, I called again, but he didn't budge. He just stood there glaring at the signpost. Hey, it's too hot to go into the Arboretum. Let's just go to the sea. I tried to say this as flatly as possible. I didn't know what the Grassflower Arboretum was, but I had an instinctive feeling that we should avoid it. We're short on cash, Hosuk objected. We can walk. It was Taehyung again. I think we'll be able to figure something out once we get to the train station. Of course, we'll have to skip dinner. Namjoon chimed in. Jungkook and Taehyung whined. Jimin snapped out of it after everyone started heading toward the station. Jimin, with his head bent deep and his shoulders hunched, looked like a little kid. I looked back at the signpost. The words Grassflower Arboretum were slowly disappearing from view. It's almost like you can see his thought process on his face by reading how it was reacting to it. Like, you could see Yoongi brooding-ish, buzzed questionnaire type look going on as he turned back, and he's just like, I wonder why he's so upset about that. No, but we know, we read about it. So, alright, Jungkook, 12th of June, year 19. Last we read about Jungkook, his father had left him. The sun was still beating down when we arrived at the train station by the sea. Our shadows were almost invisible, hovering around our feet. There was nowhere to hide from the sun. I thought I heard the roar of the waves, and soon a stretch of beautiful sandy beach unfolded before our eyes. It was the beginning of the summer. Early vacationers were already perched under parasols, which is umbrellas, if you guys don't know. There is something about the sea that makes me well up with emotions. Taehyung and Hosuk yelled out in excitement and dashed ahead. As they beckoned, Jimin and Jin joined them too. Now, have you ever been to the beach and you just like see the water and you go crazy and just run straight for the water? It's exactly what's happening. They called out to me, Jungkook. I waved at them and smiled joyfully, or I smiled to pretend that I was joyful. I was still clumsy in revealing my feelings and adapting to strange environments. Someone once told me that I acted like a timid, intimidated child. It was the same that day. I felt a bit ill at ease in the presence of the others, like I didn't belong there. There wasn't much to do on the beach. Our impulsive destination, let's race, Hosuk suggested suddenly and ran ahead. Everyone else gave chase but soon gave up. It was too hot. Namjoon brought a torn parasol he had found somewhere. All 7 of us lay under the parasol. Sunlight passed through the tears in the parasol. Round spots of the sunlight continued to move bit by bit, and we wiggled to dodge all of them. Do you want to go see this rock? Hosuk held up his phone. There was a photo of a large rock on the beach. They say if you yell out your dream towards the sea while standing on this rock, it will come true. Jimin took the phone and looked at the photo. Isn't it a bit far? It's at least 3.5 kilometers from here, which is roughly a little over a mile, I believe. Right? Or is it 5 miles? I don't remember. Y'all can let me know. It's a long way. Long way to walk. Yoongi rolled over. I'm not going. I don't have any dream in the first place. It's just funny to me because like I can see him saying it. I have any dream in the first place. Even if I did, I wouldn't walk 3.5 kilometers in this heat. No way. Taehyung sprang to his feet. I'm going. We began to walk under the torn parasol. The sandy beach was burning under the scorching sun, and the air was so hot we could barely breathe. We marched on the beach like stragglers, with our feet sinking into the burning sand. Hosuk attempted to make jokes, but no one responded. Taehyung dropped down to the ground and declared he was giving up. But he's the one who was like, I'm going. Namjoon picked him up to his feet and gave him a push on the back. All our faces were bright red and dripping with sweat. We tried fanning ourselves with the hem of our shirts, but it only blasted us with more hot air. Nevertheless, he kept moving forward. Sometime before, I'd asked the others what their dreams were. Jin said he dreamed of becoming a good person. I guess, okay. Yoongi said it was okay to have no dream. Hoseok just wished to be happy. And Namjoon, what did he tell us? I can't recall, but it was nothing special. Basically, none of us had a dream to pursue. So why were we walking along this hot beach under the scorching sun to get to some rock 3.5 kilometers away, which supposedly makes dreams come true? Like, that's a good question. Like, why are you headed there if you have no reason to go there? Along the way, we threw off the parasol that Namjoon, Hoseok, and Seokjin had taken turns holding. It did block the sun a little, but it was just too heavy with its steel handle, okay? Stop doing that. That's what Yoongi said to me while we were taking a short break and ditching the parasol. At first, I was puzzled. In fact, I rarely talked with Yoongi and didn't even realize he was talking to me. Yoongi showed me his fingers. They'll become like mine. He also had raw knuckles from biting his nails. Oh, raw cuticles from biting his nails. I hesitantly put my hands into my pockets. I didn't respond because I didn't know what to say. What's your dreams? Yoongi asked. You didn't tell us yours. He didn't seem genuinely interested in my answer. He just seemed to be asking to keep the conversation going. I don't know. I never thought about it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, what is a dream? I asked after some hesitation. Yoongi answered in his drawling voice, I told you I don't have one. No, I mean, like, I hesitated and continued. I was wondering what a dream is. What do people mean by a dream? He looked at me and then turned his gaze towards the sky, frowning. Something you want to achieve, I guess. Hoseok took over, waving his mobile phone at us. The dictionary definitions are first, an imaginary series of events you experience while you are asleep. The second, a situation or an ideal you hope to realize. And the third are false expectations or thoughts that are almost unlikely or completely unlikely to turn into reality, which that is something I would do right there, is find the definition and be like, you see this? It says it's pointless. That's horrible. But very interesting that all three of those definitions are together. Isn't the third definition odd? How can something that is unlikely to turn into reality be called a dream? Hoseok responded, people sometimes tell you to wake up from your dream, so if you're dreaming of turning back and going home before we get to the rock, wake up from your dream. Some of us laughed out loud, but the rest showed no reaction, probably because they had no more energy left. I feel that's the whole mood, dude. It's a whole mood. Alright. That's weird. How can something you want to achieve most in your life, or something that is unlikely to come true, both be called a dream? That's what I say, he said, giggling. Maybe it means that people are that desperate. They just can't give up on their dreams, even though they know they won't come true. Don't ever try to have a dream. I looked at him in surprise. How come? Yoongi had started biting his nails and feeling conscious of my glance. He put his hands in his pockets. Because it's tough having a dream. I was curious about why he bit his nails and didn't ask. Instead, I looked down at my own fingers. It's been a habit since my childhood to hurt myself. I don't remember when it first started. All I can recall is the distinct feeling of cutting my finger on a knife one day. After the painful sensation passed, blood splurted from the wound. It felt numb and tingling at the same time. Mom took me to the hospital, and I had the wound stitched up, sterilized, and dressed. She pretended to make a fuss in front of the doctor, but didn't make me dinner or help me take my medicine after we got home. Ooh. Didn't really expect her to. She'd been like this since Dad left. Oh, that totally makes sense, though. It's not right, but it makes sense. The wound healed very slowly because I kept pressing it with the tip of my nail. Every time I pressed the wound, a sharp pain shot through my finger. It sometimes hurt so much that I was close to tears. But it also helped me feel awake again. Even now, I sometimes feel hollow. Everything seems meaningless and all the energy drains out of me. How much longer do we have to walk? At Taehyung's question, Hoseok seemed to be at a loss. It's like he's like, God, y'all shut up. It's odd. I'm sure it must be somewhere around here. We all stood there and looked around. Only the sound of waves breaking on the beach filled the void of silence under the blue sky. Hundreds of thousands of pebbles were scattered across the beach like grains of sand. The rock in the photo was nowhere to be seen. Should we keep going just a bit further? I can't move another step. I'm starving and thirsty. In the middle of our conversation, Jimin heaved a sigh with his hands fixed on his phone. Taehyung, who was looking at Jimin's phone, violently kicked at a pebble with a hollow face. Jimin read the article aloud. A high-end resort will be built on this beach, and the construction company blew the rock into pieces because it obstructed the view of from the first and second floors of the resort. We took a sweeping look around all at once. Yellow bands were installed all along the beach to mark that area was designated as a development zone, with mammoth excavators roaming about in the background. A sign that read "Seawall Construction" came into view. I guess we came to the right place, Hoseok said, tapping a pebble with the tip of his sneaker. All these pebbles scattered across the beach must be what's left of that blown up rock. It's okay. There's no such thing as a rock that makes dreams come true anyway, Namjoon consoled Hoseok, lightly tapping his shoulder. We didn't have any dreams in the first place. No possibility of realizing them even if we did. It's a luxury for us to dream. Everyone tried to say something positive, but it wasn't working. We weren't expecting much, but we didn't come all the way here to see this either. Yoongi, who told me not to have dreams because they're too tough, was no different. After looking at the sea blankly for a few minutes, he began to bite his nails again. He seemed completely unaware that he was doing it. Yoongi, he turned around and looked at me. Don't. My next words were interrupted by the loud crash of a drilling sound. We all turned around at the same time. They were resuming the construction work. The loud crash sounded as if it was coming through a massive solid rock being drilled, and made the surrounding air roll and pitch heavily. Yoongi frowned and tapped my shoulder. What did you say? Yoongi mumbled something. Don't do that. I cupped my hands around my mouth and yelled. Yoongi didn't seem to have heard me and shook his head again, frowning. I was going to yell again, but he already stopped biting his nails. I could see the sea beyond his shoulders. The countless pebbles crunched under my feet. The rock must have been huge, powerful, and old enough to make people's dreams come true. Now, it was no more than a pile of gravel. Is the world tough enough for you too? I asked. As expected, the earth-shaking rumble of the drill swallowed my voice. Yoongi's puzzled look told me he didn't understand. I screamed again, do you want to give up on this world too? He murmured something this time, but I couldn't make out what it was. I shook my head, and Yoongi yelled again. Looking at our mime, Hoseok and Taehyung burst into laughter. Their laughter was also inaudible, but their faces showed their mood. The next minute, we were all looking out onto the sea and shouting our dreams. Hoseok covered his ears with both hands and opened his mouth wide. He seemed to be competing with the drilling sound, but it was inaudible. It was the same for Taehyung, Jimin, and Namjoon. Each of us cried out a story that would never reach any destination. I was standing behind Yoongi and Jin at first and walked past them to the point where the waves rolled in. All of my senses came alive. The other voices became entangled and formed an intricate web with the somewhat fishy but refreshing scent of the sea and the strong breeze winding around my fingers. Before I knew it, I was screaming out onto the sea. Amidst the thundering drilling sound, I couldn't even hear what my dream was. Then, the drilling sound stopped as abruptly as it had begun. The entire world became silent, as if noise had been cut away clean with a knife. Just like that. But our cries were not in perfect order. Taehyung coughed hard as if he swallowed the wrong way while trying to close his mouth in a hurry. Someone's voice made an absurdly high note. The last word heard was "please" by Seokjin. Instantly, we all closed our mouths for a fleeting second. No one moved. Then, we burst into laughter together. We held our sides with laughter, all pointing at one another. "Let's take a photo here." At Seokjin's suggestion, we stood in a row with the sea as our background. Seokjin set the timer and came running up. Click. This day, in the swelling heat of early summer, became imprinted on our memories in this photo. The way back was shorter than the way to the rock. Just when we thought we were about halfway, the deserted parasol appeared. Soon the train station came into sight. "Can I keep this photo?" Jin took the Polaroid out of his bag and wrote June 12th on the back. "Your dream that you yelled out, it will come true." I looked up at him. "Do you know what I said?" Jin just tapped me on my shoulder without saying anything and strode ahead. Wow. This is intense. So you gotta think about how they went to find this rock, right? And when they got there, this rock that's supposed to make dreams come true and possibly change the perspective and the mood of a situation was no longer there because it had been blown to smithereens. So just almost like comparison wise, it's almost like dreams don't exist. So kind of, it's not scary per se, but it's very different. It's ironic that that's the situation. So Jin's entry on the 25th of June, I believe the last entry was posted on the 12th of June. So this is a few days later, a couple weeks, no, or a few days. Yeah, it's a few days later. No one was there in the classroom turned storage room. We never made any appointments in advance, but it was mostly filled with people and the murmuring of voices. Such silence was rare. As I stepped inside, I detected a potted plant by the window. Who could have brought a plant here? The room was always dark with no electricity, and the green leaves appeared even greener in the half-light coming through the dirty windows. I took photos with my phone, and as expected, the photos didn't turn out well. I always thought photos fall short of capturing what the human eye saw. When I approached the pot, I could see the letter H written on the floor. Half covered by the pot, I lifted the pot to discover Hoseok's plant, scribbled there. I giggled. I should have known. I repositioned the pot to completely cover the scribble and looked around. I hadn't noticed it before, but the windowsills were covered with graffiti and doodles. The windowsills, the walls, and even the ceiling were covered with phrases like admission to college or death, proposal for unrequited love dates, and countless names that were hardly recognizable. Could you imagine being in a school system that required you to go to college in such a manner and with such intensity that you would write college admission or death? That's crazy. Okay. The storage room must have served as a normal classroom just like any other. It must have seen students file in for classes every morning and leave again in the afternoon. On back to school days, students must have filled this room, which had been empty throughout the months of vacation, chattering in a roar. Some of them must have been punished for being tardy and ditching class just like us. Did this classroom see teachers who used violence, endless tests, and homework? Were the students like me who ratted out their friends and the principal? Suddenly, I began to wonder if Dad's name was on the wall. Dad also graduated from this school. He believed it added to the prestige of our family to attend the same high school and university from generation to generation. I browsed each and every name and finally found his name among those written in the middle of the left column. Underneath his name, it read, "Everything started from here." That's interesting. So, like, who did he rat out? That's what I want to know. Who did he rat out? And that'll end that chapter. So, this is page 40 in the chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this, I'll make a new video, and we'll go from there.